Hi everyone, this is François Tarlier for atutsplus.com, and today we're going to learn how to animate a footage based on music. So in this tutorial we'll see time remapping and how to convert a wave into keyframe. We'll do a bit of expression as well and a few other tips. But first, let's take a look at what we're going to achieve. So kind of cool experimental animation. As you can see, the animation, the footage is played as the sound, and we are going to learn how to do that. So let's get into it. So the first part is to understand how time remapping is working inside After Effects, and this could be sometimes a bit confusing, so I'm gonna try to keep it really simple. So first, what I'm going to do is create a new comp from my footage, and just right clicking on the footage, go to time and enable time remapping. And what you can see, it's just add two keyframes on this footage, one at the beginning and another one at the end. But to explain it, what I'm gonna show you is actually the graph in the graph editor. So I'm gonna enable it right here, and there we go. Let me resize this. This curve is the exact curve to play the footage at the right speed, at the correct speed, I mean. And what this means is the x-axis is actually the time of your comp, and the y-axis would be the time inside your footage. So for instance, if I go at the 5th seconds of my comp, I can see that it's going to take the 5th second in my footage. So and the 10 seconds will get the 10 seconds in the footage, and so on. So knowing that, all you have to do is, for example, creating 3 keyframes with a simple way. And if I just drag this key a little bit low, what this will do, it's going to play the footage at the correct speed, and then at the 10th second it will say, now I need the something about 1 or 2, the second of my footage. So basically what it's going to do is go forward and then rewind back and go forward again, and then play to the correct speed. What you have to keep in mind is, if you accelerate one part of your videos, it will slow down another part, the other part of your video. So if I rewind this part is going to be really accelerated. And also what we can do is take this point and going up. So now it's going to play at the correct speed and then accelerate really fast, and then go back in time, and then start to replay at the correct speed. And another example would be having this at the same level, and what this is going to be, it's play at the correct time, freeze, then accelerate a bit, and play at the correct speed. So by knowing that, if we could just bring here a graph of our sound or music here, well, we can think about animating the video with this. So that's what we'll do a little bit later. But let me show you another thing with the time remapping. And by not using the graph editor, I'm just going to go to the 20th second, add another keyframe. And here what you have is two parts of the video, the first part and the second part. The second part is shorter, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, take this keyframe and bring it back in time. So now the shorter part of my video is now actually the biggest part, and the inverse for the other part, obviously. And what this means is the long part I had before is going to be played really fast, and the small part I had is going to be played really slow, really slow. So keep this in mind. If you accelerate one part of your video, it will slow down the other part, and so on. So that is pretty much all for the time remapping. Now let's see how we can convert a wave file into keyframes. So once again, I'm gonna create a new footage just for the try. It's actually pretty simple. All you have to do is right click on your footage, going to keyframe assistant and convert audio to keyframe. And what this will do is creating a new object with effects in it. My window, effect control. Here you have three sliders, the left, the right, and the both channels. Actually, in this case, I will only work with both channels, but this contains a slider with animation keys. If I go just in here we go. Here you can see all the keys which has been created for each frames. So for this, what we will do is reusing this animation curve into our time remapping, so the video will move with the music. But actually what I'm going to do first is show you how you can isolate some bass or treble on the sound, and this is by using an effect which I'm gonna add to the wave file, and I'm gonna push the bass and low down the treble. Then I'll go back to my wave file, right click, keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframe. You might not see the difference, but this gives you probably will get more the bass of your music. So I will do that the right channel and left channel again. So now let's try to combine all those effects together. So I'm gonna use my water.move footage and drag and drop it on a comp to create a new comp, and then drag and drop also the music file in it. And I'm gonna trim this so it goes only the time of the sound. Trim comp, here we go. So first thing to do is creating our keyframe as we've seen before. So I'm going to drag and drop the music and treble again, push up the bass, low down the treble, and right click, keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframe. Gonna rename this new object to base and delete the sliders that I don't need. Then go back to the music wave again and do the inverse. So I might use the treble later though. Here we go, let's do it again. Keyframe assistant, convert audio to keyframes and rename it treble. Okay. And delete those two channels. So now simple things, we're going to right click on our footage, going to time, enable time remapping. And now what I'm going to do is alt click on the watch here, okay, and use this button, okay, to drag and drop it on the slider, but first I must get the slider, okay, of the base. So click on this symbol, drag and drop it on the slider, and now you have this expression that shows up, which pretty much means it's going to get the values inside the slider. So what you can see now, it's probably moving too fast, and the reason for that is if we go to the graph editor and take a look at it, showing the expression as well. Here we go. You can see that there's a huge amplitude from the slider values. So what we have to do is low down those values a little bit. And for that, all I'm going to do is divide the value from the sliders by another value, maybe 50 in this example. So let's check the graph again, and now you can see you have smaller values. So now if we take a look at the video, all you can see is the same frames playing again and again. And the reason for that is because our graph is always going between the frame 0 and maybe 25 of our footage. It never gets more. Even after 10 seconds, it's always getting between 0 and 1 second from this footage. So what we have to do is actually add the current time of our comp into this value. And for this, I'm only going to add some parentheses and doing plus time at the end, where time is actually the value of the current time of your comp. And so now if we take another look at the footage, at the graph editor, what we can see is we get the same value changing, but it goes forward with the footage. So now if I scroll a bit, you can see the footage going back and forth, but in a small amount of time and evolving into the footage. Okay, so maybe we should try to render it to see how it goes. First, I probably forgot, yeah, don't forget to delete the bass and treble effect on your wave file, because it would change the sound at the render time. So now we don't need it anymore, so you can delete it. There we go. So to add another effect to our footage, what we could use now is maybe the treble, and what I'm going to use in this case is exposure. So first, let's say we're going to add an adjustment layer, rename it exposure, okay, and drag and drop the exposure effect on it. And what I will do again, going to the effect, exposure, master, and alt click on the watch. Okay, let's scroll down this a bit. There we go. And as we did for the bass, now we're going to link it to the treble slider. So click on this symbol and drag and drop it on the slider. Now what we should do is exposure change it with the treble, but now the exposure might be a bit too strong. So again, go back in here and divide the value by 70. I think it's a good one. Or maybe not, it's not, maybe too big. 45. Okay, yes, we have some nice value, but as I can see, it does happen a bit too often. So what we could do on this one is doing a math.flow. And what math.flow will do, it's gonna round the numbers of those values. So now what we should see is something, an exposure happening, but not as often as before. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's try to render it one more time and see the result. Okay, so feel free to play with those values as the 45, or it will probably depend with your footage anyway. But yeah, feel free to play with it. What I wanted to show you is how to get a better control over your animation. As right now the animation is kind of dynamic and working with the sound and we don't really control it. But I'm gonna show you a simple step we could do by adding another slider and control when you want the animation to be driven by your sound and when you want to drive your own animation. So for this I'm going to add another new object and rename it control. Go to the effect and presets and look for the slider control, drag and drop it on the control, and I'm gonna call this maybe speed control. Okay. And I will go back to the time remapping expressions, and right here before the plus time I'm gonna add another parenthesis and say multiply by the value of this slider. So what this is going to do is get the value from the base slider and then from the base slider, then divide it by 50 so it will low down the amplitude, and multiply this by a factor, and this will be between 0 and 1. So right now if I play it, nothing happens. So now if I play it, nothing happens. It will just play at a normal speed, because at the end of the expression we did add the current time. So if I just take a look at our graph editor, we can see the default curve. But now if I turn this slider to 1, I will see back my animation again. And if I put 2, for example, I'll see twice the amplitude, and 0.5 would be half the amplitude that I add. So what I can do pretty easily now is just for instance, let's say I'm gonna create keys, going to the slider effect right here, enable animation and create a key at 0. Go to let's do it at the second. Okay, adding another keyframe, value 1, and going a little bit later, value 1 again, and a little bit later, value, oops, wrong one, value 0, and again. Now let's see, maybe I'm going to do, ooh, this is gonna be huge. There you go. Maybe I'm gonna add another one just right here and set it to 0 again. There you go. So the animation is gonna be like progressive, I guess, on the dynamics, then stay at 1, so everything is driven by the sound right now, and it will load down to get back and playing at a normal speed, and then get back again on the music animation. So this is a really simple way to animate and still having a control over the driven animation by the music. So now we did pretty much cover all the steps. Let's just give it a nicer look, just by adding an adjustment layer maybe, and call it color corrections, and adding a curve on it. Just gonna do it pretty fast. So now that I pretty much my curve set, maybe I'll play a little bit more later. I'm gonna add, I'd like to sharpen a little bit all this water to really give it a feel of jelly glass, which is not really usual. So sharpen mask. Okay, let's add another adjustment layer. I like to keep everything separate. Adjustment layer, sharpen before the color correction. Okay, and push it a bit. Okay, give it kind of odd, or a bit more odd edges. There we go. Just to conclude, let's add maybe a vignette to it. So just adding a new solid, black. Okay. Rename it to vignette. So I'm just gonna add a mask on it. Okay, just a quick one. Kinda to even invert it. Push up the feather on it. Way more. Okay, just take off this graph. Okay, looks kind of nice, maybe too odd. Let's put it before the color correction. Here we go. Expand it maybe a bit. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Well, and now let's just play it. Okay, so thanks for watching and bye bye.